women experiencing perimenopause. What about those women?
So when we think about puberty, the other end of the spectrum, where we're having a whole bunch of hormone flux, every system of the body's affected. For those of us who have 11 to 14-year-old girls, moods change, body changes, all of those things. Now, when we get to perimenopause, we're kind of unwinding all of that because we're starting to have changes in our ratios of estrogen, progesterone, which subsequently affects every system of the body. So we're looking at changes in our gut microbiome. We're looking at changes in brain and neurotransmitters. We're looking at changes in our sleep and sleep architecture. We're definitely seeing changes in body composition. So when we're talking about the perimenopausal time period, this is where we have to take a step back and go, okay, well, my hormones are in a little bit of a misstep. So they're not going to be working from body comp and recovery point of view the way they used to. So now I need to find an external stress that is going to cause an adaptation the way these hormones used to support. So this is where we have the eye to polarize high intensity training, heavy lifting, making sure that we're really adequately recovering, dropping the volume. And it's the eye to creating the stress to have a subsequent growth hormone response, also causing some epigenetic changes within the muscle to improve our blood glucose and glucose homeostasis, as well as signaling the central nervous system that we need to maintain lean mass, power, and speed.
And what about menopause?
So menopause is technically just at one point on the calendar that marks 12 months of no periods. After that is postmenopause. So we have early postmenopause, which is around the 5 or 6 years right after that one point in time. And this is where we still want to keep doing what we did with perimenopause, where we're lifting heavy. We're having 2 to 3 days of sprint interval training a week. We're really knocking down the amount of low intensity and moderate intensity activity that we're doing, having a higher eye to increasing our protein content. When we start to get to late postmenopause, so that's 6 years onwards, we see that we don't respond as well to the high intensity work. So what we need to do is we need to have more doses, more regular doses of high intensity, more regular doses of resistance training, but less volume. So what I mean by that, instead of having 2 days of 30-minute session of sprint intervals, you're having 4 days of 15 minutes. So you're splitting it up. So you're having more regular, but shorter doses of that. And the reason for that is we've completely lost any kind of sensitivity to any estrogen or progesterone because our receptors are like, there's nothing there. So again, we need to look at what are we doing? We need to have regular doses of this high intensity and resistance training to keep lean mass going, to keep vascular compliance, keep our blood pressure in check, to keep our bones going strong, and our proprioception and our cognition. So it's a little bit of a range of where you are on that menopause scale, that postmenopause scale. So you have a little bit more play early postmenopause with what you're doing, but when you get into later postmenopause, that's where you really have to look and say, I need to do my high intensity and resistance training almost every day doing something, but a short amount of time.
If I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like no matter which group you're in, protein consumption is a priority, resistance training is a priority, high intensity interval training is a priority. However, the intensity is lessening or decreasing. The intensity is decreasing as you age, and the frequency is increasing. If I'm summarizing correctly, do I have that right?
So everyone needs the high intensity. The intensity itself doesn't change. It's all relative anyway. But the duration of time that you're spending. So if you're looking at late perimenopause, early postmenopause, you might do 10, 30-second sprints with a minute in between. When you get to late postmenopause, you might be doing 4. And that's it, because it's a shorter dose, but still high intensity. So we're really dropping volume, but we need to keep that upper intensity stuff.
What's the magic with sprints? I feel like sprints, and we're going to touch on some, cold plunging and intermittent fasting and zone 2 and all that stuff that people love to talk about right now. But I feel like sprints, I'm hearing a lot more about sprints recently.
So sprint really kind of does more than just 2 things. One, it's a central nervous system response where all of a sudden it's this huge, high, fast load. So the central nervous system has to be like, boom, got to have a lot of of capability of having fast muscle contraction. So it keeps neural pathways going. So it's something with the eye to avoiding cognitive decline. When we're looking at the glycolytic aspect of sprint interval training, so not only are we getting into the ATP, CP, but we're also getting into more carbohydrate utilization. So this is where we start to see true epigenetic changes within the muscle, where now we are having more of what we call GLUT4 transport proteins come. So what this really is a gate that opens up the cell membrane to allow carbohydrate to come in or glucose to come in without insulin. So it gives us better insulin sensitivity and the ability to maintain a blood glucose homeostasis, because our muscles are like, hey, I need some of that, bring it in, without insulin. Because as we age, we all get a little bit more insulin resistant. And then the third thing is with sprints, we get this really fantastic crosstalk through what we call exerkines, which are little metabolites that create this conversation between visceral fat, so that's that deep abdominal fat that no one wants to have, and the skeletal muscle. And the skeletal muscle is telling the visceral fat through these little messengers that, hey, we don't need you. We do not need you at all. So we need lean mass, we need carbohydrate within the muscle. We don't need visceral fat. So it's a really fantastic way of improving body composition, of attenuating cognitive decline, increasing muscle capacity and muscle function. And then I guess the biggest thing there is because it is a sprint interval, it works on proprioception. So as you get older, your falls risk decreases as well. So there's so many great things about the sprint capacity and not that long, slow endurance stuff.
So essentially, you're doing a sprint, call it 100 meters or across the field, and then you're walking back, and then you're doing it again, and then you're doing it again, and repeat over and over.
And it doesn't have to be running either. So that's the other thing. People are like, oh, I can't run because I have bad hips and knees. Sprint interval training is really just pushing for an RPE of 9 to 10 and no more than 30 seconds. And then you're slowly walking back between 1 and 3 minutes of full recovery, so that when you do it again, you're completely recovered from a central nervous system and a metabolic capacity of that fast twitch to be able to go just as hard again for 30 seconds or less.
So I'm wearing my Whoop. So in other words, is this like zone 4?
5.
Zone 5. We're going up to level 5. Wow. Okay. We're doing it.
It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard.